The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
There'll be spectacle, there'll be fantasy, there'll be daring do and stuff like you would never see.
Be a movie. Yeah, we're gonna be a movie.
Starring everybody
And me. There'll be heroes bold, there'll be comedy, and a lot of fuss that ends for us real happily. Be a movie. We can watch it all develop. Starring everybody.
And me. We'll take the world and set it on its ear.
Come on, join in. We're gonna start right here.
And we are going to start right here, nephew. Welcome to Triple Feature, a Radulich and Broadcasting Network premiere podcast. I am your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm coughing, Mr. Mark Radulich. And joining me is my nephew,
Word to Big Bird, Cat Daddy, Home Slice, G Money.
They call him garbage nuts around the way. He's trying to steal the knowledge. We just call him Baby Boy or Remy. Ladies and gentlemen, my nephew, as I channel my inner Snoop Dogg, Jason Teasley. How do you do, sir?
Well, I was told I have to bring more energy up, so I guess I'm doing quite well, Mark. I am happy to be here, joyous, ravenous, happy to steal the knowledge.
That's right.
And information and fight the power and all that jazz.
Hey, yo, Jason, them people over there, that's Disneyland. And over there, where the Chinese people are, that's Chinatown. And over there, where the Hispanic people are, yo, that's south the border, y'all. And over here, this here is a black hole. Because we black folks. Aside. Profound.
You know, I don't know who was dropping more knowledge in that movie. Where's Fishburne or Ice Cube? Oh,
Yeah,
fudge.
Ice Cube's my dog, yo. All right, so if you have tolerated this so far and figured it out, we are doing a John Singleton focus for this week's triple feature, celebrating Black history, afro-centric films, and all of that. John Singleton, we've covered him a little bit before. Jason and I did the Shaft movie that he did with Samuel L. Jackson. In our triple feature a year or two ago, focusing on urban cinema, we covered his movie Boyz in the Hood. So John Singleton is pretty well known on here. He's passed away April 28th of 2019. He was an American director, screenwriter, and producer. His feature film debut, writing and directing, Boyz in the Hood, was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Director at the age of 24. He was the first African-American and the youngest nominee in the category. Singleton went on to write and direct other films such as we're going to talk about tonight, Poetic Justice. Also, as we're going to talk tonight, Higher Learning, the historical drama Rosewood, the aforementioned Shaft, 2000, as we're going to talk about tonight, the coming-of-age drama and the cure for insomnia, Baby Boy. Too Fast, Too Furious, which is the second Fast and the Furious movie, which we've covered on here, and Four Brothers. In television, he co-created the television crime drama Snowfall, which I loved. That was appointment viewing for me. If you haven't seen Snowfall yet, and you're not quite ready for The Wire, you should watch Snowfall. He directed episodes from shows such as Empire, Rebel, and the 5th episode of The People vs. O.J. Simpson, an American crime story. But you haven't seen that. That is excellent. That is appointment viewing. He was nominated for the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Director for a Limited Series, Movie, or Dramatic Special for The People versus O.J. Simpson. He is one of the most successful, groundbreaking directors in African American cinema, and his films represented the African American urban experience, focusing on themes such as Black masculinity, trauma, racism, and identity. Frequently, he worked with a lot of rappers and musicians such as Ice Cube, the aforementioned Fudge, Tupac, who was in Poetic Justice, Janet Jackson, Poetic Justice, Q-Tip, Busta Rhymes, who was in Higher Learning, Tyrese Gibson, Baby Boy, Snoop Dogg, Baby Boy, Ludacris, and Andre 3000 in prominent roles. So let's get into our first movie tonight, unless you have something further on John Singleton. Let's talk about Poetic Justice, which I had never seen before. Of the three movies we're going to talk about tonight, the one that I had the most closest relationship to was Higher Learning. I have seen that one a bunch of times. I love Higher Learning. I just showed it to my kids. It has got some of the unintentionally funniest lines in almost any movie I've ever seen. I will talk about this at length when we get to the movie, but my son and I were joking that Higher Learning was misnamed. It should have been called Heavy Handed. It is as it is as subtle as a kick to the face.
Oh, I mean, what would you expect? I mean, John Singleton is known for his very in-your-face, ham-handed movies.
Yeah.
There's no reason for Keenan Ivory Wayans to show up and yell message, because you definitely get the message.
But I had never seen Poetic Justice before, nor had I seen Baby Boy. And I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to Baby Boy. But sticking with Poetic Justice, it's known as a street romance. And as I get older, I'm more tolerant of different genres of film. I'm more interested in talking about them because I am so bored and so disappointed by a lot of the science fiction and fantasy that I've loved over the years because of their mismanagement by the companies that own them, that I'm really looking to other genres, other types of films, older films, to find that same level of joy. So back in the day, I actively avoided Poetic Justice. I was not interested. As much as I like Tupac, a street love story featuring Janet Jackson in 1993, when I'm, a junior in high school rather, did not appeal to me. We'll talk about how the movie goes in just a second, but having seen the movie now, I don't know if I would have appreciated it back when I was in 11th grade. As an almost 50-year-old and having, a steady diet of films of every variety, I definitely can appreciate it now more than I would have back then. Also, a lot of life experience has definitely shifted my point of view, much more so that I could appreciate what he was trying to get across in Poetic Justice. What about you, Jason? Did you see it when it came out? Is this your first viewing of it?
No, I see that. It wasn't when it first came out. It was a little bit later on in life. A girl I was dating rented it, and we watched it. And as the horny teenager I was when I watched it, it was on the background. Let's just say that. We didn't really, I'm kind of in the same field as you. Watched it back then. I didn't have the appreciation that I do now, as later on life experience and all that. Getting to see it from a more weathered, I'll say that instead of old, weathered perspective than, watched it when it came out, because through these triple features we do, especially during Black History Month, it opens my eyes to a lot of genres and films that I would not see or would have wanted to seek out and see previously. So watching it now has gained a little bit more appreciation than back then.
So Poetic Justice is a 1993 American romantic drama written and directed by John Singleton, starring What Have You Done For Me Lately, Jason Teasley, Janet Jackson,
Pre-nipple slip.
That's right. Tupac Shakur, before he was shot, Regina King, and Joe Torry. It follows
Regina King, who's an alcoholic.
It follows a poet, Janet Jackson, mourning the loss of her boyfriend from gun violence. She goes on a road trip from South Los Angeles to Oakland on a mail truck, along with her friend, who is Regina King, postal worker Tupac, in order to deal with depression. Following the success of his debut film, Boyz in the Hood, Singleton wanted to make a film that would give voice to young African American babbling women. I may have edited that last part. Jada Pinkett.
No, it's right.
Jada Pinkett, Lisa Bonet, and Monica Calhoun, many other popular actors auditioned for the role of Justice, though Singleton knew from the script's draft that the role was solely intended for Janet Jackson. He shot this in just a couple of months between April and July of 1992. It was released July 23rd, 1993, received mixed reviews from critics who criticized the screenplay, though praised Jackson and Shakur's performances and chemistry. Yeah, I don't think people got this when it came out in 93. Like, I think if you played this for critics now, having seen so much of this kind of thing in the past 30 years, the screenplay wouldn't bother so many people, the kind of coarse language that's used. It's reached number one in the box office its opening weekend, grossing $11 million. It eventually grossed $27 million on a budget of 2 shillings and a halfpenny, $14 million.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically a shoestring budget that he had to film this.
Yeah, Jackson received the Academy Award and Golden Globe nominations for Best Original Song for Again, which also reached number one on the Billboard Hot 100. Janet won 2 MTV Movie Awards for her role in the film, including Most Desirable Female. The film has developed a cult following, especially with the chemistry between Jackson and Shakur. Not a whole lot to this movie. Again, when we meet Janet Jackson, she's on a date with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend apparently rubbed somebody the wrong way, and they decided now would be a good time as any to shoot him in the head, which they do.
At the drive-in.
At the drive-in. She was stranded at the drive-in by gunshot. So between that, the death of her family, she is kind of a lonely spinster, working as a hairdresser and writing poetry. That's Janet Jackson. And all the women in this movie are telling her, Janet Jackson, you need a man. And she was like, no, thank you. The last time I had a man, he was shot. And I don't feel the need to repeat that again. We meet Tupac, and Tupac is a mailman. He has dirty fingernails, and he's looking for a woman. And he sees Janet Jackson, and Janet Jackson says, no, thanks, I'm not interested in Tupac penis. However, Regina King is dating Tupac's friend, who's played by Joe Torry, and Joe Torry also works as a postal service person. And they have to make a work run to Oakland. Regina has gone on this run before. This is an opportunity for her and Joe Torry to mess around. So she invites Janet Jackson because my God, woman, you need to get out of the house. You need to go live a little. Let's have an adventure. The rest of the movie is a road trip. It's very dialogue driven. It's very stage play-y. There's a lot of conversations about inherent bitchiness. Tupac's like utter frustration with Janet Jackson in the car and him turning to like, why are you so mean? Resonated with me personally. Like, Janet Jackson's definitely coming from this place of, I don't trust men, but I don't trust men because you get involved with them and then something bad happens and then you lose them. And then I haven't quite processed my trauma for all that. So it's just better if, it's better if I keep you at arm's length. Also, men don't particularly act right, so I'm suspicious of you all. And there's Tupac going, okay, I've done nothing to you. There's no reason for you to be this way. I've heard this. I have definitely been there, Tupac. I was telling a coworker today, Tupac speaks for me. There's a lot of discussion about being in a relationship, what that means, what are your roles in terms of boyfriend and girlfriend. The movie doesn't deal directly with non-traditional relationships, but like this and Baby Boy also very much had this, we are straining against traditional monogamy. Like, traditional monogamy is the accepted relationship dynamic, but nobody wants it in these movies, in either one. So there's also conversations that take place over What is the nature of the man in the relationship? What is the nature of the woman in the relationship? It's funny because there's a lot of discussion now on like social media about what do women bring to the table, and there are women who will put up social media post of, if you ask me what I bring to the table, that's an immediate ick, and I say no thank you, and this is why men don't date anymore. So if you're like, this seems to be a new phenomenon, nope, we were discussing it in 1993 in the movie Poetic Justice. Are men just wallets? Are women just receptacles for penis and trying to clean this up.
Don't clean it up. Me and you do not have clean episodes. This is why this is your safe space from Robert.
Okay. But yeah, semen, that's what I was looking for. Are women just receptacles, cum dumpsters, that's the technical word. Are that's all, is that all they are? Is that all they're useful for? Or are men just, ATM machines? These are the things that are considered on this road trip in this movie. There's also issues of provocation and domestic violence that come up. Also, what is the proper etiquette for crashing a barbecue? If you're, if black people are having
the best part.
that is the best part of this movie. If black people are seen having a barbecue, what are you supposed to do? Obviously, we're all family when it comes to barbecue. You know what I mean, Jason?
Well, I mean, in 2025, if you're invited to the barbecue, you're in like Flynn. I mean, everybody wants invited to the barbecue. They just happen to be invited to. They wasn't invited. They just showed up.
Yep, but they were there. They were accepted as part of the family until domestic violence broke out. The last thing I'm going to bring up, because again, there's really no plot to this. It just follows them on this vacation. They go up, they go down. She writes poetry. Robert would refer to it as Tumblr poetry, but this is 1993 and Tumblr wasn't a thing yet. He is working on music with his cousin, and wouldn't you know it, because this film has to go somewhere at some point, the cousin gets killed, and Tupac,
as they pull up.
Yeah. Timing
what
is
great
everything.
timing.
Yeah. So Tupac convinces his cousin's parents to give him the recording equipment so he can do something with it. I have a major problem with what happens next regarding the music and the poetry in this movie, but I'll get there in a moment. In any case, they do, and because he is distraught over the death of his cousin, he goes off on Janet Jackson. Like, just they had hooked up by this point. They were starting to fall in love, and then the cousin dies, and he handles it poorly. He does not have the coping skills. So he blows up on her, and her heart's broken now because, oh, look at that. The one time I open up my heart to a man, he acts shitty to me. First chance he gets. So they go back home, and he kind of shakes it off, and then he finds her again, and he apologizes, and they live happily ever after. Poetic Justice, everybody. Jason, what did you think of this movie?
Well, we can't forget the best part of the movie. One of the best parts of the movie. The fact that Tone Loc is unfazed throughout everything. I mean, he's the most chill person ever. And, he's just the smoothest, most chill person ever, even though his girl, who is Tupac's baby mama, is hooking up with another guy in the bedroom, and he's just okay with it. He's just chill.
He just wanted to watch cartoons.
Yeah, he's just laid back. I mean, like we all wish we could be.
Sipping on gin and juice.
But this movie is very dialect driven. It explores a lot of things heavy-handedly, especially the trauma, the domestic violence, the fact that, after you punch somebody, the biggest disrespect is to throw the comb away from them as you drive before driving away. That is very important. When he punches Chicago and then throws his comb, you see the dynamics of jealousy from Chicago toward Tupac, because he's always, any chance he gets, he's always taking a shot or throwing a slide jab or backhand comment to Tupac, like telling him that Janet Jackson's not his league, that the rap dream is bullshit. He shouldn't even.
Joe Torry's character of Chicago is everybody I hate right now in my life, and I am trying to either communicate with in a way that says this behavior is unacceptable or just cut out entirely. The incessantly negative, cutting down, unsupportive piece of shit where no matter how hard you try, no matter what you do, there they are, complaining, criticizing, offering no suggestions. I have a constant refrain in my head of it's so easy to just tear things down and offer nothing constructive than it is to actually try to build something. I am really trying to limit those kinds of people in my life. And there's Tupac saying exactly the same thing in this movie.
Yeah, but I mean, you can handle it like Tupac. Take a road trip, smack the shit out of them, and throw their brush into the ocean.
Leave
I
some
mean,
bitch on the side of the road.
Yeah, leave him on the side of the road. Who knows? We don't know if Chicago lived or died. Last time we seen he's probably still searching for his brush in the ocean.
What an adventure that we need to make that movie, The Adventures of Chicago, as he searches for his comb and see what fairylands it takes him to.
How about this? How about the new Pantsless production is me and you remaking Poetic Justice,
Mm-hmm.
and I played the part of Chicago, and you're Tupac.
Okay. I'm just gonna whine incessantly about negative people.
And then instead of, after I get kicked out and you throw my comb, we'll just follow Chicago for the rest of the movie, searching for his comb in the ocean.
Okay.
We'll do flashbacks and stuff. I mean, you do live in Florida. I mean, we could make it on a shoestring budget. But
anyway,
this is a movie that, if it would have been made 10 years later, would have had critical acclaim. And that I say that for a lot of John Singleton movies. I think John Singleton was way ahead of his time. And a lot of his movies,
the world was not ready for John Singleton.
Right. The movies he made took on some really hot button topics, especially in the Black community. And I don't think 1993 and that era, I mean, we're just coming out of the Rodney King stuff and all that. There's very huge racial division and racial tensions. And I don't think that, one side was really seeing these movies unbiased.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that a little bit more when we get to higher learning. But Poetic Justice was definitely ahead of its time because it is a very talky movie. It's very story driven. And you really see the fact that Tupac, his charisma comes across the screen in buckets. I mean, you see
we said that with Above the Rim. He is, his charisma carries his performance way over the line.
You see it a bit more in this because he's got to go through a lot of range. He's got to do the angry black man. He's got to be the sympathetic shoulder to cry on. He has to go through a lot of range in this movie, and you get to see it in droves. And that's one thing I wish he would have done more, is he would have went out, if he hadn't died, that kind of put it into his career indefinitely. But I would have liked to see what he could have done in film a little bit more, because I think he could have been a good leading man and had a second resurgence of his career.
Yeah, I think had he gotten away from Suge Knight and he had gotten himself a proper agent and really kind of, I don't get caught up in the example because it's the model that I'm pointing to. The Rock, for a while, really just turned away from anything that was distracting from acting. And he took as many parts as he could get in as many genres as he could get, because he didn't want to, he wanted to get as much work that he could, and he wanted to be successful at acting, and he couldn't be if he only did one kind of thing. Eventually, the rope would have run out. He also, I think, went to acting school. The Rock really did what he needed to do to reinvent himself as an actor in Hollywood. And I think if Tupac had done the Rock model and not been shot, he would have been in all kinds of. We would be talking about a guy who was versatile, who was genre bending, who had a second life as a Academy Award nominated actor. Tupac was really a special guy, and it's a shame that he was snuffed out before the world could see what he could really do, because all people know him as is the gangster rapper and was in a couple of street films. Like if you look at his filmography, he didn't get very far after Higher Learning, after Poetic Justice. But imagine somebody could speak to him and somebody could get between him and Suge Knight and send Suge Knight back to his home planet. What kind of world we would have been living in with a live and active and successful Tupac?
Okay, let's play. I want to play devil's advocate here.
Mhm.
Whose career would you say that Tupac would have had? Like a Chadwick Boseman, a Cuba Gooding Jr. Where do you think he falls on the ceiling of his, if he would have lived?
I mean, I think Chadwick Boseman, who also
That's what I was thinking.
we never really see. We'll never know how far Chadwick Boseman could have gone. But I mean, look at what he's done. He's Black Panther, and he's the kid
42.
Fonte Mac. He's had an array of roles.
Played
Chadwick
Jackie
Boseman.
Robinson in 42.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I think Tupac would have had the Chadwick Boseman, where he was a good looking guy. He had a muscular body, a little on the short side, but I think they could have worked around that. And I think the more he did, and the better an agent, and the less, and it's, if he was willing to behave himself, I think the sky would have been the limit for him.
Could he have been an action star, you think, or do you think he would have been more of
if Wesley Snipes
dramatic.
could be an action? If Wesley Snipes could be an action star, he could have been an action star, because that's another one that's a good model for what kind of what Tupac could have done. You could have traded out Wesley Snipes with Tupac in Demolition Man and lost nothing.
I was going to say, could you really see Tupac as Blade?
Yeah,
that would have been interesting.
Absolutely, especially now. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the rest of the film elements, and I have one major criticism of this movie.
Okay.
Janet Jackson's great. I think Janet Jackson has got a lot of poise, a lot of pathos. I think she's a very attractive woman. So, it was interesting to kind of look at her and see her emote on screen. I thought she did well with this part. Your characters are only going to be as bright as your writer, and I don't think John Singleton writes particularly deep poetry, but the poetry he gives her that kind of does in voiceover throughout the film is supposed to be presented as deep. And like I said, I laughed at a lot of it. I was like, this is the worst part of this movie.
It's about as deep as a kiddie pool.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's a kind of droning, 13-year-old Tiger Beat kind of poetry.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like I said, Regina King's really good in this. Joe Torry's really good. The conversations, the themes that take place are all excellent. My one criticism of this movie is there's a lot of conversation about Tupac's music. There's a lot of Janet Jackson reading poetry. The fucking movie is called Poetic Justice. These two get together. The obvious choice, the obvious conclusion of this movie was he says he's sorry for being a dickhead and invites her to make music with him, make use of his cousin's music with her poetry. And the movie should have ended with them starting to have a moderate degree of success making music out of her poetry and his cousin's beats. And instead, he just apologizes to her like a yutz, and she does the bit from the beginning of the movie with "Come here, I want to whisper something to you," and this time she kisses him instead of saying his breath stinks. And that's the end of the movie.
No, that's how that goes. Is she says, "You want to know how my punani smells?"
Oh yeah, you felt the need to correct me on that, but it doesn't matter. It was
I do, because that line
because it's so
that
easy to
scene
destroy than it
is
is to build things up. Um,
no. I'm just saying because that goes back to the laughable stuff of this movie.
mhm,
Is like you would not because you wanted to take Janet Jackson as this like really serious,
almost prissy.
depressed um thing, and she has this kind of chip on her shoulder, like she's better than you.
Mhm.
But writing that line in there is like it seems like something, and I know this was come off really odd, some ghetto bullshit rather than like having her be a sophisticated, educated,
Mhm.
brooding female that you're supposed to take her as. That's something you would see on a street corner.
Right. And then she's like, "Do you want to smell my punani or some shit?"
Yeah.
All right. So if we can get off that line for a second, because I was going somewhere with this. Um, yeah, they call back to that moment, and this time she kisses him instead of doing the punani line. But that's it. That's the whole end of the movie, though. Like the resolution to the movie is, "I'm sorry for being a dickhead," and then she's like, "That's fine. I forgive you, and now let's be a couple." Like, oh, it's like I don't know if did John Singleton not know how to end this movie, and how do you run away from the obvious choice?
Um, I think that I totally agree with you. I think that would have been a better ending, but I think maybe the studio got involved, and it was a lot of studio trying to muscle some and not wanting it to go a certain way. That could have been an issue.
Hmm.
Because, like I said, this was only his like second movie, so he didn't have coming off Boys in the Hood. He was gaining that momentum, but he wasn't there yet. He wasn't able to, he
Call
actually had to take studio notes
right.
basically, and rather than override them for the power he wields as a great director. So I think that might have had a lot to do with it, especially being a young black director. I mean, he was like 25, 26 when this came out.
Right.
Because he was 24 with Boys in the Hood. So
Yeah,
I
I just
mean,
yeah that and that's really like my only problem with this movie is that it has kind of a ho hum, underwhelming ending. But other than that, I actually really like Poetic Justice. I don't know if this is one I would show my kids just yet, because again, one, with the kind of things that are discussed, even I have my limits with what I want my kids to see. Um,
you
and
sure
but
about that?
yeah, I love it when you guys criticize my parenting.
No,
Um,
I don't care. I mean, I was raised the same way. I didn't.
but my problem is there are some like the next movie we're going to discuss, Higher Learning. I think has lessons that even little kids can understand. Little by that I mean 11, 10, 11, 14, 15. Um, this I don't know how much this speaks to children. This is a young adult, middle aged adult movie.
This is a college level movie. I feel.
Yeah,
I think because a lot of the themes would go right over kids' head and they wouldn't grasp it. And I
yeah.
think that that's how it was written, is to be more or less
Well, it's an
a
adult
college
speaking.
level movie.
It's an adult speaking to adults.
Yeah.
One of the criticisms that Robin and I have when we talk about Danny Hollywood is so many movies are written for children. Even if the intended audience is maybe a little bit older, they're written at a level that children can get it. This isn't. This doesn't assume your audience is stupid. This assumes your audience has taken a shot to the gut. you know, this is highly relatable if you've had any kind of life where you've lived with people. And children have not lived with people as such just yet. So I don't think it resonates. But I mean, with me being almost 50, with everything that I've been through, I very much related to Poetic Justice. And like I said, I think for the most part, it's if you're not somebody who appreciates the urban genre, I don't know how much you're going to take from this movie. But I will tell you, I think that if you remove the urban genre filter and can get past the coarse urban language, there's a lot to take from this movie that is universally um, resonant and appealing.
Fully, fully agree. But I think, like I said, I think it was well ahead of its time.
Yeah.
10 years later, this movie would have been huge.
Yep. Absolutely. It probably would have been nominated for like best screenplay at the very least. I don't know if it would have won, but it would have been nominated. All right. If you got nothing else, then let's move on to
No,
what.
I'm good.
What are you two doing there? Plotting? Hey, Jason, can I offer you something? Possibly a peppermint? Dude, my friend Chuck and I used to run around doing that to people. Like, would you like a peppermint? It's great if you fucking see the movie and get the joke, but
Yeah, I mean, this. I don't know how to describe this movie. This movie was all over the place.
Okay, you saw it when it came out, right? That's what. Oh, well, we're talking about higher learning, and I'll read the demographic
Yes.
stuff in a second. I saw this when it came out and watched it a zillion times. I quote this movie constantly. You just heard me do the peppermint thing. What are you doing there, plotting? I almost introduced you tonight as he just wants to be an engineer.
I figure with the Remy thing, you would have said, "Have you ever shot anybody, Remy?"
I was too busy doing my own thing. I remember watching this with my dad, and at the end, where they let Remy go, but they're beating the fuck out of Omar Epps, the security guards are, and my father's like, "This is too ridiculous even for me. No, I'm out." It was like he could not handle how heavy-handed and like 110% leaning into systemic racism this movie was. Like it made my autistic father be like, "No, it's not that bad. Jesus Christ."
There's leaning in. There's leaning in. Then there's the Michael Jackson leaning in. And we went with the latter.
Leaning into the point of satire, and parody. Higher Learning is fucking hilarious. And so that's the thing. It's not a bad movie. It's just overtly blunt to the point that it becomes comedic.
And there's a big issue that I'm gonna talk about on this because it deals with a very sensitive topic. So if you got sensitive ears, fuck off till we talk about Baby Boy, because I'm gonna go balls deep when we get into a certain theme of higher learning.
We want to let Jason go balls deep, so let's talk about what this movie is. Higher Learning is a 1995 American crime drama. So 1995, I am in college. I think I'm in my second year of college. Written and directed by John Singleton, starring an ensemble cast. It follows the changing lives of three incoming freshmen at the fictional Columbus University. Malik Williams, who's played by Omar Epps, a track star who struggles with academics. Kristen Connor, who's played by Christy Swanson, a shy and naive girl, and Remy, Michael Rappaport, a lonely and confused man seemingly out of place in his new environment. The film also featured Tyra Banks' first performance, and what a performance! In a theatrical film, Lawrence Fishburne won the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Motion Picture, offering people peppermints. Ice Cube was also nominated for the award. This was the last film appearance of Diedrich D. Gobert, who was shot dead in 1994 prior to the film's release. The exterior shots and outdoor scenes were shot on the campus of the University of California, UCLA, while the interior shots were Sony Picture Studios. Had a budget of, I have no idea, it's not printed, but the box office was 38.3. It ranked 44 yearly domestic gross and 17 amongst R-rated films in 1995. For their performances, as we talked about, Lawrence Fishburne and Ice Cube, the film received mixed reviews, as I'm sure it might. It holds a 46% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And the character Malik, played by Omar Epps, appears in Don't Be a Menace to South Central with Drinking Your Juice in the Hood, which we reviewed on here. A comedy movie that parodied some popular black movies of the 90s. A year later, after the graduation of a friend, Malik had returned to the university where he was shot and killed by a new skinhead member. I vaguely remember that. All right, so the plot of Higher Learning is there is no plot. However, you are seeing the first semester of college, and we are introduced to Omar Epps, who is a track star, and he's hanging out with Ice Cube, who is a super senior, and Busta Rhymes, who is his cohort.
Hype man.
I was his what is it? Your sidekick. Busta Rhymes is his sidekick. We introduced to Michael Rappaport, who at first is nonplussed dealing with the black kids that are around him and how loud they are, and out of an inability to bond with people, he finds the local skinheads, and he is utterly corrupted and empowered, and takes all the wrong messages and does all the bad things. Christy Swanson is a girl in the world, and she parties with her white friends, and this leads to her being sexually assaulted. And then because of the sexual assault, she ends up taking up with a group of activist women, one of which is Jennifer Connelly, who's kind of a lesbian. So there's that.
Yeah, that's where we're going to go balls deep.
So here's the thing. There's no plot to this movie. This happens. This happens. There's a lot of conversations about race, systemic racism, the college system in and of itself, gender differences, sexual assault. My ex-wife's favorite phrase: regret is not rape. That sort of thing. There's a lot of sort of pro-black, sort of separatist conversations. Then there's just a lot of goofy kids being shitty to each other. It culminates with Michael Rappaport shooting into a crowd during a peace festival, and he kills Tyra Banks, who is kind of sort of dating Omar Epps, and he shoots somebody else. I don't remember who. And then eventually, having been cornered by the security and overwhelmed with the guilt of what he had just done, he shot himself in the head, which seems to have pleased the lead Nazi. Omar Epps drops out of school, and Christy Swanson is blonde and white. That's the whole movie. And
yeah, pretty much.
There's no way to describe this that sells the movie. What sells the movie is Jason and I acting it out and just reciting the dialogue. And like I said, I showed it to my kids. My daughter didn't have much of a reaction to it. She was kind of like, okay, I'm entertained by this, but I don't really know what to say about it. My son, who is only going to be 11 years old in April and has not had the college experiences, was like, this can't possibly be true. What, you go to school, have a hard time, become a Nazi? Is that how this works? Is that what's in store for me? And he was just like, that's why we kept making jokes like, this is way heavy-handed. This is John Singleton. His aesthetic, his like motif for this movie assumes none of us have ever gone to college, and really needed to like dumb it down so people would understand what the college experience was like. As if in 1995, half of the United States hadn't already been to college.
Yeah, and I think that the writing style of Singleton, I think him and Spike Lee might have had a bet going on who could be the blackest director
and most obvious and most heavy-handed.
Yeah, I think because you go from Do the Right Thing, when we reviewed it, you see a lot of the same undertones of racism and stuff in Do the Right Thing that you see here. Yeah. But Singleton takes it to a whole new level with the skinheads, the neo-Nazis.
He is like the equivalent. He is the director equivalent of the guy with pictures of his kids smacking you in the face with the pictures.
Yeah, but also where Singleton did succeed is, how some students on colleges are targeted for certain organizations. You find the outcasts that don't seem to have anybody. That's where you're going to get, your easy, basically quote unquote easy prey. Mm-hmm. We see that with Remy, and we see that with what's her character's name, Kristen. We see that, but also with Malik, you see him trying to Malik and Fudge, Ice Cube and Omar Epps. You see them trying to be these well-rounded characters that only want to seek knowledge, and they gotta live up.
Can we say right now, Ice Cube's a fucking bully? You
Yeah,
know, I'm not defending in any way, shape, or
there's
form Remy taking to neo-Nazism, but let's not. Uh, John Singleton frames Ice Cube as something of a righteous figure. He's just a bully. He's
there's
picking
no
on.
difference between
He's
him
picking.
and the neo-Nazi.
Yeah, I don't really have a major argument. I mean, I think there's some nuance here that's missing in that argument, but I'm not going to fight you on it. But Ice Cube absolutely weighs on heavy the weaker white kids, and he kind of also bullies some of the black kids around him. But in like there's a scene with Omar Epps where he's like, can I borrow this book? He's, and Ice Cube's like, oh, you're showing an interest in a historical figure. This is fantastic. I'm very happy about this. And Omar Epps is like, yeah, I need it for a paper. And suddenly Ice Cube's like, yeah, no, then you can't have the book. Either
Yeah,
have
it's for
intellectual,
Frederick Douglass.
either have intellectual curiosity or fuck off. And I don't think it's too strong a word to say that's bullying.
Yeah, well, the reason why I say that him and the neo-Nazi leader is very similar
Mm-hmm.
is because they're both preying on people that they see inferior to them,
Yeah.
and they're wanting to exploit those people to further their cause. Fudge is exploiting Malik because he's a star athlete that can influence people. The head Nazi guy's exploiting Remy because he's very subjective. He doesn't find a place to belong. He's an outcast, and he can be manipulated easily.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of it's like two puppet masters using pawns to carry out a vendetta against each other. And like you were saying before, you have these segregated groups on campus. And
Yeah, that is a real line of dialogue. Over here is Disneyland, and he points to a group of white kids. He points to the Asian kids and goes, that's Chinatown, which my kids and I fucking laughed hard to the point where I almost had to stop the movie because we were laughing so hard at that as if there's only one kind of Asian. And then he points to the Hispanic group, same thing. And that's south of the border, as if the only place on earth that has Hispanics is Mexico. And then in the best line of this whole thing, because he's just like, well, clearly he has something nice to say about black people. Nope, this is the black hole. Because in case you missed the subtlety of that line, because we black folk. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
Ice Cube. I would not have gotten that without you saying it.
Yeah, we would have not noticed.
Yeah.
That
This is the black hole because we scientists. The fuck? No, we get it, Ice Cube.
Because we're engineers.
Yeah.
He wants to be an engineer.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Lawrence Fishburne's written as this. I can't determine where they wanted his accent to be from.
He does such a weird accent. Like, what fucking planet was Lawrence Fishburne from?
Yeah, it's like he wants to be a soulful reggae instructor. It's like a Southern Baptist reggae preacher, and it's kind of hard. But they write him as this like really sophisticated, well educated, and it's like, why can't he just be like a normal professor? Why does he got to be like so over the top and offer peppermints?
Peppermint, and it's never like, would you like a peppermint? No, he has to like he's offering you this exotic fruit. Peppermint,
Yeah, it's like Willy Wonka's golden ticket.
Lawrence Fishburne just prancing around the university throwing peppermints at people.
Oh, that would be great. Just like have like a little picnic basket full of peppermints, just tossing them out, and just going peppermint,
peppermint, peppermint, peppermint. So good. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck accent he was doing.
But this movie's really good. Because, like I said, another movie ahead of its time, dealt with a lot of things because, again, the Rodney King thing is still predominant. We got a lot of racial tension in there, and you see it a lot on the college campuses. You still see it to this day, and throughout the years, you still see racial tensions on college campuses where everybody is like, because as a freshman in college, you're trying to find yourself.
Right.
A lot of times it's the first time that kids are out from underneath their parents' rule and they're going crazy and they don't really know how to act because
Yeah. You
kids
see
are
that.
dumb fucks.
You see that with. You don't see it so much with the black kids partying, and then they really don't show you anything with the Asians or the Hispanics. So it's really the two cultures in contrast are the white kids and the black kids. And if you really squint hard enough, you can kind of see the beginnings of an examination of gay culture on campus. Kind of, sort of, in the 1995 way. Like, John Singleton is very much preoccupied with systemic racism. And why shouldn't he be? As a proud black, successful man, he's going to give attention to something that I'm sure he's dealt with. As many of his actors that he's worked with have as well. So I don't have a major problem with that. He's less interested, it seems, in dealing with gay stuff, but he can't pretend it doesn't exist on campus. And it's an interesting thing, and I don't know how I feel about it, that he presents an inextricable link between gay culture and sexual violence.
Okay.
And I know there is one to some extent in many cases, but I don't know if I would paint it with such a wide brush to where it feels like it's always that way. It isn't. That's a reductionist view of both.
All right, so let's get serious for a moment, Mark, because this is going to be Jason goes down a rabbit hole. First and foremost, sexual assault, sexual violence is wrong and everything. But the way it's portrayed in this movie is she's all up for it till he does not want to wear a condom. Then there's a problem. Then she starts saying no, she's all for it. And yes, he does force himself on her.
You're not going to defend that scene, are you?
No.
Okay.
No.
I don't care how many times you say yes. Once you say no, the game's over.
Right.
Okay.
But it's like I have an issue that the sexual assault and everything is exploited for Jennifer Connelly to start a relationship with her. And she preys on her vulnerability from the sexual assault to push her into a relationship.
Are you making the argument that that's how John Singleton is painting it, or is that just your interpretation?
No, that's exactly what happens, because from the sexual assault, Jennifer Connelly sees this vulnerable girl.
Hang on, I just want to make sure I understand, because you really didn't answer my question. Permission to treat the witness as hostile, Your Honor. Just kidding. There's two ways to look at this. There's Jason Teasley saw this, and this is your interpretation, which I'm fine with. You can interpret it any way you want. That's why we do these comedy. Or you're kind of getting in the mind of John Singleton and saying he's painting Jennifer Connelly. This isn't an interpretation. John Singleton paints Jennifer Connelly's character as predatory, as somebody who, once we have this injured lamb, now she's ripe for the lesbian pickings. Is that what you're saying John Singleton was doing purposely?
I don't think he did it purposely, but that's how it was portrayed. I think that there was a lot of...
What's your interpretation then? You're not...
I think that... Well, hold on. I think there was a lot of scenes... there might have been scenes cut, and the editing kind of framed it this way.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, if you do the Jennifer Connelly as a predatory thing, it fits everything, because you have the neo-Nazi preying on Remy,
mm-hmm.
You would have Jennifer Connelly preying on Kristen, and Fudge basically preying on Malik. So
mm-hmm.
you could frame it that way. I don't think it was an intentional thing, and I think it might have been an editing issue, but that's the way it really comes off. Is Jennifer Connelly sees this girl who has a traumatic experience, is off on her own and everything, and she exploits that vulnerability.
Intent is important if you're going to make that claim. If you're saying Jennifer's the subtext of Jennifer Connelly's character is she's looking for women who are damaged to either turn them or take advantage of them in a sexual preference sense. Okay, I don't see a lot of evidence of that in the movie, though. That seems like projection.
Well, let's present evidence then.
Okay.
When they are first introduced, she is walking across campus. Kristen's walking across campus alone. Jennifer Connelly just magically shows up out of nowhere and is going on about the phones, and she's talking about sexual abuse and everything, and basically laying the seeds. Then after the sexual abuse happens, the first person Kristen turns to is Jennifer Connelly. She goes to the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, you see Jennifer Connelly kind of, and I want to use this as a term nowadays that you hear thrown around quite loosely. You see her kind of grooming Kristen
Okay.
up till the point where they run into Kristen's roommate, and she's ashamed to be holding hands with Jennifer Connelly, but Jennifer Connelly kind of, the body language and stuff kind of gives off this, which we've all been there. You're ashamed to be with me, and
Yeah.
you're ashamed of how you feel about me. It's okay as long as we're behind closed doors, but out in public, you're ashamed of me.
Right.
And you have that.
You're gay in
you
the
have
sheets,
that
but not in the streets.
Right. $20 is $20. But you see that subtext. You see, I don't know, like I said, it might have been an editing issue. There might have been more context to it that got cut. But I feel that is something that could be looked at as a predatory relationship.
Okay. I don't have a strong enough counter argument to fight you, so I concede. For the sake of time, I want to move that. Unless you have anything more to say about that, we're gonna move on.
Let's move on to Ambien. Baby Boy.
No. I don't want to move on to Baby Boy. I want to talk about Malik for a moment. The last thing I'm gonna say, because we really need to talk about Malik and Remy, because we kind of danced around it. But one, I think John Singleton wants you to be sympathetic for Malik. I think he wants you to see his point of view. He's definitely. I mean, when your other character turns to Nazism and shooting people, it's there's
elite.
What other way was I to interpret this movie as Michael Rappaport's in the wrong, Omar Epps is in the right? Except that's the problem. That's the major problem I have with this movie because I love its silliness, I love its over the topness, I love its directness, I love its bluntness. However, it's not perfect, and there's some major problems with this movie. Not the least of which is up to the point that Remy becomes a Nazi and is threatening to kill people, and then does it. I'm not sympathetic with Omar Epps' point of view. He is gifted in athletics. He's a track star, so he's allowed to go to college for free or in part for free. And he's expected to keep up his grades, perform for the school, and for that he gets, a couple of $100,000 in education that he can do, they can better his life with. And he's bratty about it, and he's entitled, and he spends half of the movie complaining.
He feels like the world owes him some.
Yeah, I'm supposed to take this as our sympathetic point of view character. I don't wish death on people, and I'm really trying to be a better person these days. But, and I certainly was not cheering for Remy to shoot him and hit poor Tyra Banks instead. But, take the gun out of Remy's hands and remove the Nazi context, and he's just like an angry white kid who's tired of the black kid's bullshit. I'm cheering for Remy.
A little bit. I really wanted to find out that Michael Rappaport was in Baby Boy, because if so, we could have just said this was a Michael Rappaport
Triple feature.
But yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. Because Malik is kind of
An asshole.
one. You're supposed to feel sympathetic. You're supposed to want. You're supposed to connect with him, and there's nothing there. There's no redeeming qualities.
Think of it this way: everything is handed to Malik for one reason or another, and he does nothing but cry and complain to the point where the Tyra Banks character is also like, "Will you please shut the fuck up? Stop crying." Michael Rappaport doesn't do anything wrong. Michael Rappaport complains about the party.
Well,
Well, to a point. That's what. Hang on, I'm going somewhere with this.
Yeah.
That's why, like, don't like cut me off because, sorry. Because obviously
You're
him
checking your
joining. Yeah, I just lost one. The Lakers and the Hornets did not go over. The Nets rather. Cavaliers and the Nets did not go over 225 points. So, yay betting.
yeah.
But no, think about everything that happens up to that point. Michael Rappaport complains about the party because it's going late and he has school tomorrow. And Ice Cube's being a jerk about it. And then I think he has a few other like confrontations with Ice Cube, who's a dick to him and a bully. And then he just
he gets called a pussy. He's just standing there on the porch, and Ice Cube calls him a pussy at the party.
Right. And then the next thing that is like, there's a point where he's, I think, in class and he's frustrated and he's not doing well and he's kind of jealous that all the other students are getting it faster than he is. Which, okay, you're not doing anything wrong per se. Like, you're having a character moment, a negative character moment, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's doing anything wrong or being a bad person. And up until the point that he's sitting and he's reading on the steps when he's confronted by the one Nazi guy, at that point he hadn't done anything wrong. And he's kind of the victim through like half of this movie. And here's the point that I'm trying to make. In order for John Singleton to get the right reaction out of the audience, he has to push Michael Rappaport well past the point of absurdity. Like, that's the point that my 10-year-old son was making. Sorry. That's the point that my 10-year-old son was making. Jonas was like, okay, so he was having a rough go of it in school. He immediately goes to Nazism. Feels like we skipped a step. Or 10.
Yeah, he goes 0 to 60 in like 2.2 seconds. And like
that's
a
the
couple
point
of weeks
I'm trying to make.
Yeah, a couple of weeks he goes from I feel out of place to I'm this enraged Nazi.
Yeah. So that's my one frustration with this movie is John Singleton so badly wants you to see Omar Epps' point of view. So instead of writing Omar Epps is in any way sympathetic, he has to make Michael Rappaport so awful that you have no choice, which instead makes you just feel like there's nobody to root for in this movie. Because then now let's go back to Christy Swanson's character, where she's an idiot and kind of a tart and a little shallow, a little vapid, and she gets drunk at a party, and I'm not cheering for her to be assaulted. Once she said no, that's the ball game. And it's a hard scene to watch. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to take this experience now, and I'm going to be an activist, and I'm going to help other women, and that's kind of all I'm going to be for the rest of this movie. And when there's, like, high racial tensions, she's like, what if a concert? What if a concert cures it all? Well, you know, like she's the girlfriend of fucking Bob Dylan in A Complete Unknown. And then it's like, oh no, the concert was disrupted by gunfire. It's all my fault. It's like, all right, my choices are the Nazi, the entitled black guy, or the idiot girl. Boo! There's no one to cheer for in this movie. I'm cheering for Tyra Banks. That's who I'm cheering for.
Yeah, I mean, she does a great performance. I mean, her and Lawrence Fishburne's the only characters that are actually middle of the road redeemable.
Yep.
And likable.
You know what the problem here, Jason, is? It's all about this Black Fist.
Let's go on. Let's go on to Ambien.
Busta Rhymes' finest work, let me tell you. That actually was a song. So my friends and I used to write like goofy shit songs. Like a couple of my friends had recording equipment, and this is before ChatGPT, we would like hang out either if he was working at the gas station or at his house, and we would just write stupid as shit songs that he could record. This was well before Suno.ai, and one of the songs that we wrote was "It's All About This Black Fist," which I may have written in my Nation of Domination T-shirt.
I'm sure you did. The Black Heart, Mark Radledge.
That's right. Black from the waist down, Mark Radledge. Speaking of Black from the waist down, Baby Boy.
Ambient.
I actively avoided this movie like the plague. So I fucked up, and I was telling Jim this about this. Like I thought I was avoiding this movie because I was adverse to the pacifier culture in the using of pacifiers in Black culture as a sort of symbol of arrested development. I hated it. I thought it was the most awful thing. And you can see like the use of pacifiers in Boyz in the Hood, but I thought it was all over Baby Boy too. Like I thought he was riding a tricycle, not a real bike, like a lowrider bike, which he does. And I thought he had a pacifier, which he doesn't. I fucking imagined it. So, but still,
Mandela. We'll go with the Mandela effect.
Okay. I avoided this movie because I was utterly disinterested in a movie about young Black male arrested development. I just didn't care enough. Like I get it. I think looking back now at almost 50 years old, I might have more interest in it, and at least as a cultural phenomena and an examination of generational trauma. But it took me a master's degree in mental health and like 20 years of my own trauma to get to that point where I'm a little bit more sympathetic to it. Back when this came out, I could give a fuck less. And I did not want to watch this movie. I avoided it for years. So it was kind of why I threw it into this triple feature. One, because I didn't want to do Rosewood. But also,
we're brothers, but
we could have. But also, like I felt like it was time. I wanted to give this movie a fair shake. Turns out I really like it, believe it or not. I know it can almost put you to sleep, and I will tell you that this movie is overly long. It's one of my big criticisms of this. This movie does not earn its runtime, but I like it now more than I thought I was going to when I decided we should talk about it. So, you've never seen it before, right?
No. This was
Okay.
the first time viewing it.
And the last time. Got it.
And the last time. I mean, this isn't as bad as. This is a close second to that horrible animated feature you.
Oh God!
Made me
You
watch.
think it's as bad as Nerdland? That seems a bit much.
Yeah. I said it comes in second.
Okay.
Nerdland is the bottom of the barrel.
You're being a histrionic woman, but that's Jason.
No, I say that because literally this was I made the joke that this is ambient because every time I tried to watch it, I would get 10, 15 minutes in it and I would be asleep.
Okay, I don't know if that's the movie's fault though. You're working hard, you work crazy hours, and maybe you're just tired.
Well, I was trying to watch this all day Saturday when I had the day off.
You were impossible to talk to, and I never wanted to work with you again.
That's fine. Just call me Wesley Snipes, okay?
Call you Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, because after anybody works with Wesley Snipes, besides Woody Harrelson, they never want to work with him again.
And you don't pay your taxes. All right, Baby Boy is a 2001 American coming-of-age hood drama, directed, written, and produced by John Singleton. Stars Tyrese Gibson, Snoop Dogg, Ving Rhames, Omar Gooding, AJ Johnson, and Taraji P. Henson, who is like the absolute far and away best performance of this movie. The film follows Joseph Jowdy, oh, Jowdy don't love me no more. Sorry. Summers, a 20-year-old bike mechanic as he lives and learns in his everyday life in the hood of Los Angeles. The film was originally written with rapper-actor Tupac Shakur in mind to play Jody. Shakur had previously worked with Singleton on Poetic Justice. However, following Shakur's murder in 1996, Singleton decided to replace Shakur with R&B artist Tyrese Gibson. Additionally, the role of Rodney was originally written for Ice Cube, who had worked with Singleton on Boyz in the Hood and Higher Learning. The film marked the feature acting debut of Gibson and provided Henson with her first prominent role. Released in the United States on June 27, 2001, the film received predominantly positive reviews from critics and audiences, with many deeming it as Singleton's best film since Boyz in the Hood. The film is also the final feature film written by Singleton, as he did not write any of his later feature-length directorial projects before his death in 2019. On a budget of $16 million, it earned $29.3 million. It has a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes, and that's it. So this has no plot either. To the unifying theme of this triple feature. This is how long is this movie?
2 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's really
I think.
bad. Yeah, this is 2 hours and 10 minutes, like it's Lord of the fucking Rings. So we have Jody. He lives with his mom in their grandmother's house, and his mom gets a new boyfriend. And the whole thing with Jody is that the mother put his brother out, and while being out of the house, the brother got himself shot. This traumatized Jody, and now he's afraid to leave the home. Jody likes to fuck, and fuck he does. He has brought 2 kids from 2 different women into this world, and I'm sure more if he had his druthers. He does not work a steady job, though he does do a fair amount of hustling by selling stolen dresses later on in the movie. But for the most part, he's kind of living the life of a 15-year-old horny boy. He bounces between women. He bounces between homes. He won't leave his mom's home, and he's deathly afraid that his mother's going to put him out of the house. His girlfriend, who's one of his baby's moms, has her own apartment. She has an ex-boyfriend who is currently in prison, and that's Snoop Dogg. And Snoop Dogg is going to come home soon, and that's kind of the conflict of the movie. Kinda. The rest of it is we're just kind of following Tyrese around. We're following him, watching him sell dresses. We're following him, banging different women. We're following him arguing with a lot more women. We're kind of watching the mom's relationship with Ving Rhames develop over time, and there's like sort of the looming tension of what is Ving Rhames' whole deal. Is he going to abuse the mom? Is he tried and true? Is he trying to push Tyrese Gibson out of the house? These are all things that are in the air with this movie. Eventually, Rodney does come home, and Rodney tells his parole officer he's going to live with Taraji Henson. And Taraji Henson's like, the fuck you are? And he's like, well, I've already told my parole officer this, so I live here now. And he's like, all right, so I've been in prison for a while. Give up the ass. And she's like, I don't want to. I didn't want you here in the first place. And because coping skills are non-existent in this part of the world at this time, he kind of projects all of his anger at Jody. And so there's conflict between these two. And having decided that the only way to get Taraji P. Henson's character to bang him is to kill Jody, he attempts to. Jody instead gets with his other idiot friend, and they instead kill Snoop Dogg. Having been traumatized by done murdering someone, he goes back to the house. Ving Rhames helps him clean off the gun, and much like Boromir and Frodo, they know each other a little bit better now. And
they share an experience of the plight of the black man.
And so he, having already had a fight with Ving Rhames, and then Ving Rhames kind of helping him out with the gun, he figures now is as good a time as any to just get the fuck out of the house. He kind of had already been put out, but this time it's his own choice, and he moves in with Taraji P. Henson, and they are having fun. That's it. That was 2 hours and 10 minutes to get to that point, by the way. This movie this had 90 minutes of content. 90. This was way too long. And to make the point that young black men suffer between the absence of strong male role models in their life, in many of their lives, and the generational trauma that they suffer, they are just awash in arrested development and emotional immaturity. And that's kind of the whole point of the movie. It's a window into this world of man children and their lack of coping skills and their whorish behavior. But wait, there's more. It's also an examination of how shitty women are in this community. That they tend to, as much as the men tend to objectify the women are objectifying the men too. Kind of goes back to what goes, poetic justice. Are you just a dick with legs? Are you a wallet with legs? Maybe you are. That's all we see you as. Are you just a vagina? Are you just a baby making machine? A place to live so that I can be a perpetual teenager? Maybe. That's a lot of the conflict of this movie. Over and over and over and over again.
This feels like a student film that was stretched out to 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could have made this film in 45 minutes and just about hit all the notes without the excess fat. Like I said, this movie I wasn't a fan of. I thought it drug way too much for me. It was like, hurry up and get to the point, hurry up and get to the point. Wait, there is no point. I hate my life.
All right, let me jump in here. I like this movie a lot. It's just too long, but I also watched it in like parts. Like I was watching it between sessions, and I think I finished it at the end of the night when I was crying about my bets. But I, like I said, Tyrese Gibson. Everyone is acting within their range. No one here gives a bad performance, but some of their ranges is limited, and they're all well within their range, except for Taraji P. Henson, who really goes for it in this and is fucking stellar. Like later on, she'll play in Hidden Figures, the mathematician in the NASA program that helps them get to the moon. And I think between this and then are like her two best performances that I've ever seen. Taraji P. Henson really goes for it here and is a lot of fun to watch. And I'll tell you, the bit where she is just beating on him and punching him and, like, I dare you to hit me. And finally he like goes to hit her and she flinches and like halfway runs across the walkway. I was like, that's an intense scene. And boy, have I also been there. To where the woman is just like goading you and goading you and goading you and goading you. Like, come on, do something. If you were any kind of a man, you'd do something. And it's wrong to do something. You shouldn't do something. But God, you really want to, because who wouldn't want to respond to being provoked that way? And then
equal rights equal lefts.
And then you kind of just do it, and then like the abject horror that this giant man might beat this dainty woman who was clearly asking for it, like, that's intense, man. It's a good scene. She does it really, really well. It's also scarier than any horror movie I've ever seen.
The tension of the movie is dialed up so high that you're like, you're waiting for a big payoff, and you just kind of get a lackluster payoff.
I mean, they shoot Snoop Dogg in the street. What kind of a payoff did you want?
Well, I mean, you could have had more. I think it was the fact that you look at I wanted more tension in the fact that, more interaction between them and the threats and everything, and the fear of him leaving the house.
So if I'm given this script as a studio executive, I'm like, okay, two things. One, cut this in half, you psycho. Two, introduce Rodney at the end of the first act. Have more interactions between Taraji P. Henson, Tyrese Gibson, and Snoop Dogg throughout the second act, and then he comes home in the third act. And do exactly what they did, but that's your third act. That's all this movie needed.
Yes. I think just the looming of him coming home would have, I think they could have dialed it up, and or like had her leave and be the cause of the split up, and then basically have him stewing in jail, basically to get his woman back, and to have that looming over the head of Tyrese. I think that would have, like you said, that would have built a little bit. The tension would have been a lot better,
right,
and not as forced.
Because the tension is whether or not he's ever going to leave his mother's house, which isn't enough. There needed to be, because the resolution of the movie is he shoots Snoop Dogg, and Yeah, and then he moves, and then he actively moves out of the mother's house instead of just allowing himself to be kicked out after a domestic violence incident. Whereas I think if you tighten this up and make it more about the ticking clock of Rodney coming home, and that palpable tension of you need to move in here and take care of your business because the psycho is going to come home and you're going to end up losing me. This nut job's not going to let you claim me. Okay, that I think makes it a tighter, more tense script. Instead, it's just this ongoing, like, the only other way to do this is that this is a television show, and it's the ongoing screaming match between Tyrese Gibson and Taraji P. Henson.
Now, you mentioned, that she only had 2 good performances. I'm going to say that her best performance was Hustle and Flow as Shook.
Yeah, that's good too.
Simply because of the arc she does in it.
Mm-hmm.
But she has tremendous. She is a very underrated actress.
Dude, when she's in the car crying, "He doesn't love me anymore," like that got an emotional reaction. I mean, like I genuinely felt bad for her.
Yeah, I mean, she's a phenomenal actress, and I don't think that she gets her flowers enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that she gets overshadowed a lot in great performances. Like, this is a great performance, but it's not in a movie that a lot of people seen or gets recognized a lot. Hustle and Flow's the same way. She has an amazing performance, but it's it's kind of a genre that not the masses will see.
Yeah.
Hidden Figures, same thing. It was critically acclaimed.
Well, the
But
clip's going to roll over TikTok now.
But it's really it's for a niche audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for the masses. And I think that's her biggest issue as an actress is she's phenomenal, but she's in movies that are not for the masses, so everybody doesn't get to appreciate her.
That's fair. The commentary again about Arrested Development and not wanting to leave the nest, not wanting to. I mean, I don't want to spend another hour on this, but there's a lot to be said for, like I said, generational trauma, lack of male role models. Like there's just statistic after statistic, study after study that shows an absence of positive male role models in the lives of children has an extremely detrimental effect. It shows it's a lot of the reason for why they behave the way that they behave. Ving Rhames is written as doing his level best to be kind of a mentor to Tyrese Gibson, but Tyrese Gibson doesn't have the emotional maturity to hear him, and there's jealousy and there's anxiety about losing his very comfortable life. And I think there's also something to be said about the comfortability of being a pet, or being a perpetual 15-year-old, no responsibility, sort of, delayed adulthood, that kind of a thing. That's really all this movie is about, and that's all this movie is commenting on, other than men and women can be really awful to each other. So I'll give you the last word here on what you were awake for Baby Boys, or anything else. Like I said, I really liked it because I liked what it was talking about. It's just too long.
Yeah, I mean, you could have trimmed this. You could have trimmed this way down, made it a tight 90 minutes. Introduce characters in the first act with the payoff in the third would have been a significant improvement to the film. Other than that, like I said, I mean, I wasn't a fan. I mainly because of the length of it, and I just felt it had no direction. So out of the movies, I would recommend Higher Learning. Definitely watch Higher Learning. Poetic Justice, if you want to see some of Tupac's ability to really show his acting abilities, I would recommend that. Personally, I would not recommend Baby Boy, unless you want something to fall asleep to.
Baby Boy is a very niche movie. I keep talking about how I work in an office full of a variety of age Black women. And the one that was willing to talk to me about this movie today actually said, she was like, "This is my least favorite movie," and she's like, "It's not bad, but I guess her take on it was, I guess it was constantly being played on BET, and I guess if you're a frequent watcher of BET and this is on all the time, it's like a fucking Christmas Story on TNT or some shit,
Yeah.
or any one of the guys from movies who like movies that we used to watch on cable that's on incessantly. This was on BET apparently all the time, and so she's like, it's not bad. I don't hate it. It's just I'm just sick of it. This got too much play.
I could see that.
And and the other thing that she said to me, which I thought was interesting, she was like, I don't need to be reminded how some Black men can be awful and some Black women can be awful. Like it's an argument that I get from other people in our group chat and the people I talk to. Movies are supposed to be escapism. They are a place to go to get out of the humdrum hoi polloi, tedious life that we all live. And then take a look at Baby Boy, and Baby Boy hits a little too close to home. And you're just like, I don't need to be reminded of this. Try to get away from this.
I want escapism.
Yeah, I want a peppermint.
I want a peppermint.
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 All right, that is when we start saying peppermint over and over again like insane people. That is the end of our podcast. Jason, this was a really great conversation. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that we get to stretch our intellect a little bit as two white guys talking Black cinema and viewing movies that we typically would not see and talk about.
Yep. It's definitely one of the nice things about having this format is it gets me to talk about movies that I wouldn't normally have a chance to talk about, and it certainly gets me out of the slop like Captain America: Brave New World. Because if I have to talk about movies like that, I may not podcast anymore. So,
well, Mark, next week we get to come out of the humdrum dramatic light that is John Singleton and talk three spectacular, amazing.
The finale of Black History Month here on Rattled Broadcasting Network is an actor focus on the great Samuel L. Jackson, who has been in 1.9 billion movies. But the three that we chose are Snakes on a Plane, which I will show my kids Friday, The Great White Hype, which is one of my favorite movies, and then finally Soul Men, which I've actually never seen, with the great late Bernie Mac. So that's a week from tonight at 9 o'clock. As I said earlier this week, we talked Captain America: Brave New World. Fucking shoot me. Sunday, Sessions is back. We are going to write a punk rock song about the night that Jesse wanted to stick a pencil in his eye after me, Ronnie, and Robert drove him crazy watching video game playthroughs. That was a fun night.
I can imagine.
We got a little punchy that night, and and by the end of it, Jesse was done with all of us. Also next week, besides the actor focus, DMU Hollywood presents its 2024 Best Picture contenders. This will be the third time we've done this. We've done already a couple of triple features dealing with these movies at length. This is more of a survey of all the movies and whether or not they should have been nominated for Best Picture. We'll have Alexis will tell us about the best animated features. We'll talk Oscar snubs, and we'll make predictions. So that's Monday, right here on the Rattled Broadcasting Network on Damn You Hollywood. Jason, do you still do your fantasy football podcast?
No, life got in the way, and we can't do anything. But only thing I do is work, coach basketball, play basketball, and talk Black cinema with you currently.
Sounds great. All right, folks, thanks for joining us here on Triple Feature for my nephew,
my ninja,
Jason Teasley.
You're looking for a peppermint.
I'm looking for a peppermint. Peppermint? Be well, be safe, and behave.